you know, and sleep in my bed for 2 nights. And I flew from LA out here, and it was a direct flight, so it was easy for me. And they actually brought me over to be part of the trade event here.
Have you been down here before for Folex?
I have been before. I came on the supplement side for many years. I worked alongside with Nutrition Systems, who brought me to most of the time to Australia. That's when I did most of my touring. So I've actually gone through the whole country pretty much and done the tours. I've gone all the way to Perth, and I guest posed here, and I spent time. I was at the casino here at one point. But mostly business, that's why I come. I mean, I don't do a lot of leisurely things. Last year I did quite a bit of leisurely things, but I didn't do anything out this way. It's a long trip for us to come.
Man, I grew up in Northeast Ohio. I know you're a Massachusetts guy. And I remember there was a time my mindset was so limited, is that like even flying from Cleveland, Ohio to like Miami, my friends had to be like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But then you open it up a bit, you do the LA flight. Have you gotten to the point where you're like, dude, 14 hours from LA to Sydney's not that bad?
It's not bad,
okay,
man.
There you go.
And I fly business, so it's like I'm fortunate that I can just. And we fly at night, so for me, this is like cake for this one. This is easier for me than flying back to East Coast. I would go to Boston next week. I got a layover in Texas, and then because I fly United and they don't fly direct out of Las Vegas, so I'm looking at next week's trip of 6 hours to be more of a pain in the ass than going
straight
here because I just slept and I woke up and I had 2 hours and I was here and I went right to business. That's it.
Man, hopefully everybody listening to this when it airs on iTunes will, already know. But I think it was like 10 years ago, I saw like a little mini clip of you. It was on YouTube. It was like right when YouTube was, gaining notoriety, and it was you in your house in Vegas hustling. I don't know if you'd won the Mr. O yet, but you were not only trying to train your mind and body for that to win, but you were doing the t-shirt thing out the house. You were grinding the entrepreneurial side out the house. And then to watch you evolve as an athlete, watch you evolve as your brand. Do you ever look back on those when you're in, the hustle out of the house with the shirts and everything? And how far has it come, and how far do you want to go?
You know what? I mean, I can recall before internet, I started doing mail order, and I had one shirt and I had one 8x10 picture. I wasn't even a pro yet, and people would write to me with a P.O. box and all the magazines. Remember, that was our only outlet at the time, so people who wanted to respond and communicate, they'd handwrite me letters. I mean, these weren't typed letters, these weren't emails because it didn't exist, the internet. So they'd send me letters and I'd say, okay, I'd write hand letters back, and I would put in there, I had just a photocopied sheet, and I had the picture on there, the t-shirt, and I'm like, you want to purchase this, send me a check or money order. He would send me cash, and that's how I kind of financed a little bit in the beginning. I'm like, wow, this is kind of something here. And then of course I started, doing DVDs, and I started with books, and then I did t-shirts. I remember starting, we really started the t-shirt line in 2008. Is when I really kicked off. Like I started the Cutler Athletics brand and the Swole Monkey brand, and I was selling t-shirts out of my garage, and that actually went all the way up until a little over a year ago. I actually got a warehouse space in Vegas, but shoot, I was selling $500,000 a year out of my garage.
Before social media.
Before social media, and I mean, I remember doing DVDs, and I tell people, like, I had probably 10 people, close friends and girlfriends of like guys that I knew that were helping me pack up the DVDs. I'd launch a DVD once a year. I'd shoot one every year for like each preparation or whatever. I had like 5 different releases I did. And I remember those things would sell, and I would sell thousands the first week because the launch, it was like everyone was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And the magazines, I do ads in the magazines when print ads actually mattered, and people would watch this DVD release, and then the orders would just start flying in. Overseas, it was just crazy. Like, they would order up the DVDs, and I was selling them for $40 a whack. And
it really is impressive. So I was explaining to my friend off air before we started filming, and about how like the path that led you to when your first Mr. Olympia, you won 4, and how like I brought up the stats of who had won the most and that sort of thing. But to your business side, with you winning that, for me, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just like this statement of your professionalism on how you do your thing. Is that something that you picked up through the maturation of becoming a man, or was this instilled in you as a young boy by maybe a figure?
You know what's funny is I grew up in Massachusetts. I grew up in a town of 6,000 people. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. I got 3 brothers, 3 sisters. And at age 11, my brother started a concrete company. When we grew up, we had a lot. My dad was very strict with us. I mean, we had a lot of responsibility, but we were very, we weren't accountable. Like, we were accountable for ourselves, meaning like he expected us at 10 years old to basically be able to stay home alone and not get into trouble. And like, it was just my sister and I. She's a year apart from me, and then there's a big age gap between my other brothers and sisters. So I can say my sisters actually raised me, really, because my dad and my mom, they worked and they were out all the time. So I was really close to my sisters, and my brothers, of course, had the eye over us. But they started that concrete business when I was 11, and I had to go to work every day. So after school, weekends, school vacations, that's what I did. But I was earning money, so I was taught the value of $1. But that was extreme hard work, working in concrete. And I kind of developed that business sense. And at the time, I remember my dad dragging me out of bed at 6 in the morning, and all the other kids were going away on school vacations during the breaks, and I was like, man, why am I so underprivileged?
And how old were you in this?
I was 11, 12,
11 years old.
13, 14. I mean, I did it all through my teenage years, and I was working nonstop, and I was getting paid like even short money, but it was still something. So I was buying my own school clothes. I was buying food. I mean, I remember when I started dating I had my first real girlfriend at 14.
Yeah.
I had bought a car at 14. I had registered
really making
it.
me look bad already.
Right?
Yeah.
I had registered it.
Yeah.
I didn't have a driver's license because you could insure, register, and buy. I didn't need a driver's license, and I just drove. I didn't care. That's what kind of like
the
era
mindset
we grew up in, though.
Okay.
Like and my dad was like, you know what? You're responsible enough. He didn't, back then, people weren't suing people out, running into each other. And I mean, I was careful, but I just drove without a license. I didn't care until I got caught.
Yeah.
Then my dad was a little upset about it and had to go to court, right?
You're like, Dad, you told me.
But I had everything. I had ATVs, and I was like doing everything the kids like to do at the time I wasn't working. That was like kind of my outlet. And that's what kind of taught me the business sense in the beginning. So when I fell into, bodybuilding, and I can fast forward, and I like right away I remember refusing contracts because there wasn't enough money, and that kind of set me up.
Were you with your parents in Massachusetts? Because you recently put this photo up of, it was like you getting into your prime, and then but the first photo was like you look like a young teen.
I was 14.
But it was telling the story that fitness in bodybuilding it's always been a part of you. It's been ingrained in your DNA at that young age.
Because I was doing the concrete work. I had a physique. So I remember all my brothers and sisters who are older, their friends would be like, man, your little brother's like jacked up.
Do you know Francis Ngannou? Have you heard of that guy?
No.
He's in the UFC. He's a heavyweight. He's come out of nowhere. Born in born in Africa.
Yeah.
He's been at the Las Vegas Performance Institute. But his thing with the media is falling in love with is that he grew up digging, like building concrete.
Okay.
Similar to like that hard labor. But similar to your story.
That's how. So I had a physique, and I was lean. So I was lean, so I built a physique.
Were you aware of it?
Yeah, I was aware of it. Like I have pictures of me flexing when I was, when I was 8 years old, when I was 10 years old, I always had a little muscle to me. And my brothers and sisters no one ever lifted weights, so they don't look anything like me. I'm the only one that actually ended up bodybuilding, but I had a good physique, and I remember people saying to me, man, you should lift weights. And I was an athlete. I played football, and I did track in high school. I was a good football player. I was tough. I was rugged. My brothers beat me up a lot. So when I really started lifting the weights, my body just responded. Yeah. And I had this thing that I wanted to be a bodybuilder. Like, I had it set. Like, at 12, I remember picking up a magazine, and I saw a picture of Chris Dickerson, who was a former Mr Olympia, and I said, this is what I want to do. But I wasn't sure how to get there, and I said, so I just kind of read along, and my sister's boyfriend had magazines, and I would look through them. At the time, I know I talk now, but it's understand that this doesn't relate to anything today because it's all social media, right?
It's even
magazines were everything.
And it's even hard for me. I was born in the early 80s, and to think, like, I'll brainstorm with some of my buddies, and we'll talk about, could you imagine what it would be like for a kid, like a 14-year-old now, to not know what like social media is, because that's all they know. Like when we were growing, I remember when computers were new and we had to use typewriters. So it's kind of like, when you just had the magazines, Do you think that actually kind of made you, though, even really believe in a dream even more because there was less external stimulus around to kind of attach yourself to?
Think about this.
It's crazy.
Okay? Think about social media. Right? Everything is perception.
Yep.
And there's so many people on social media that are fakers, right? Or they're just posers.
Faking the funk, man.
Yes. And the truth is like you picked up a magazine, I saw bodybuilders standing next to Ferraris, and that's just a prop, right?
Yep.
I mean, we've all kind of done it along the way where it's been set up. You know, they've done photo shoots in these extravagant houses in, you know, Hollywood Hills or whatever.
As the prop.
I thought, okay, that's his Ferrari. I mean, you're a kid. You think, okay, just like the guy, you know, he's drinking the protein shake, and it's like, oh, that's all he does. Like, I really thought, like, oh, bodybuilders only drank protein shakes, not like, oh, they didn't have to eat chicken breasts and whatever. I thought, okay, that's the secret to get it. I remember when I went out and bought my first thing of protein. I remember from GNC when I was 18. I went out and I saved up $50 and I bought it, and you know, I thought,
Joe Weider,
well, it was called Perfect 1100 actually. It was, I forget what the brand was.
Yeah.
So I remember what it looked like because I sat it on the table, and I put it there and I said, this is a secret. This is what's going to get me huge. And I said, okay, have a shake, whatever, once or twice a day. I drank that whole thing in a day. And I ended up on the toilet.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was just, you know, I thought that was it. And guess what? It didn't get me huge.
Yeah.
It just
gave me
the runs.
You've always been inquisitive, though, and it's so. A lot of the chats I'll have here, you know, I hear it's the discipline aspect that I think. Do you think that that's the difference? Do you think if you were able to just grossly simplify the difference between somebody who achieves a certain level and somebody who just never finds it, do you think it comes down to just a component such as just that discipline?
I think it's discipline, it's work ethic. I mean, like I said, I was taught, like I busted my ass. I remember, I was just telling my girlfriend the other day, I said, do you know I used to pray in the morning? Because we used to work 15-hour days. This is a family business, so there wasn't like, oh, you work 8 hours. There was none of that shit going on.
You had to make this thing continue to run. So
we went from the sun up until sundown, and then sometimes with headlights from the trucks to pour this concrete and whatever, because this is our livelihood, right?
Pipeline.
So it was an average day was 14 hours plus the driving time to get to some of these jobs. So for me, I would sit there and I pray in the morning. I could never imagine getting through the day because I hated it so much. Yeah. I said, there has to be a better way to live my life. And I was like, they're like, this is going to be yours someday. And I was like, there's no way I can do this for the rest of my life. I have to do something that I want to do. So my brothers and sisters, a lot of them even didn't graduate high school. I choose to go to college. I was pursuing a degree in criminal justice.
Did you stay in Massachusetts? Did you go
out west? I stayed in Massachusetts.
What school did you go to?
Quinn Sigerman Community College. It was a 2-year school.
You chose to go there?
I chose
because... Was there friction between your family?
Yeah, because they were like, they wanted me to stay with me. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to, I didn't want to do the concrete. I didn't want to make a living with a shovel and, a hammer and everything else, and working in the cold and then the heat and then the bugs and the change of seasons, and I hated it. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go to school to be a police officer. But I really wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. It was just like, okay, get me away from the concrete and let me work towards something. And I was working odd jobs. I was doing security. I worked as a cook. Yeah. I did it all. But I joined the gym my 18th birthday. I saved up $300, which I was making good money doing the concrete work. And I joined that gym, and I escaped. The gym was my escape. That was the time where I spent 2 hours a day. And I would sit in the gym, and I would watch these guys work out. And I would learn from that, and I would pick up scrap magazines at the gym, and I'd see these guys come alive out of the magazine. And I said, this is what I want to do. Bob Harris. Have one? Okay. I actually bought a book from GNC. It was a book called Beyond Build. It was the first bodybuilding book I read. Yeah. I think it was the first book ever I read from front to back, because that was my passion.
Yeah.
And I read this guy's training manual, and it showed the exercises and how to eat and everything else, and I studied that. And this guy's body was like, he was really put together. He was classic physique, really good-looking guy, and that's how I wanted to look like. And I started training, and I got lost in those 2 hours a day in the gym, and I can truly say, reflecting back, it was my outlet to escape from all the stresses of being 18 and the family dragging me and this. and going out trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I slowly realized how good I was at lifting weights because I transformed so quickly.
How long did that take? When, that mindset, that mental switch when you were like, you know what, you told yourself that you could literally put everything into that. And how old were you when you went all in? When you were like, there is no backup
my
plan.
18th birthday, I remember specifically, I drove down to the Gold's Gym in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I had $300 in cash, and I laid it on the thing. It was $300 for the year.
For the whole year.
This is what I'm going to do. And I joined the gym, and I started training, and I started learning, and I progressed so quickly. And people started to take notice, and it's like the guys I was asking questions soon would be asking me, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I was competing within a year's time, and I was placing second at my first show. And after that, I was like totally hooked. I went to win the Teenage Nationals at 19. I did a show in California. I was fortunate enough to fly out there, competed there, won. I landed my first muscle and fitness cover with Joe Weider. He offered me a contract at 21 years old, and I refused it because I wanted to make more money. I went back home, trained for it, got my pro card the next year, and then I signed a big contract, and then after that I was making money to do what I love to do. I wanted to lift weights, and along that I built the empire. I started buying real estate. Every show I ever won, I bought real estate, and moved to Vegas because I bought real estate after 9/11. That's the real reason I would end up in Vegas.
Yeah, all right.
I was in California. Joe Weider moved me out to
What part of Cali?
Orange County.
I was in Long Beach. I was right near Seal Beach.
Yeah,
right
I was in Aliso Viejo. So.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So I was just like the Schwarzenegger story. Yeah. Joe Weider moved me to California to be closer to the magazines.
Yeah.
And I took advantage of that.
You're in your mid-20s.
I was
early
25.
Wow.
25, and I moved out there, and my career took off. And as soon as I started winning, I reinvested my money. I bought a house in California within 6 months.
Wow.
And then I went to Vegas after 9/11 because everyone was scared to buy everything, and that's when I was really starting to turn money. And I bought like 6 properties. I was like what they call a flip, where I started buying properties before I was even completing building these homes. I was selling them and making money.
Yeah.
And then eventually got into commercial real estate, and I still do real estate nowadays.
Yeah, Jay, I know that I only have a few questions left. I know your time's limited. You're a busy dude flying from city to city. The one thing I want to talk about, one of the final ones is the feeling. So one of my good friends is a fighter, and she fights in the UFC. And before each fight, she gets so nervous. So I always, I'm her strength coach. So I talk to her about when she wins, and they hold her hand up and announce her name. That's what does that feel like? That should be what what she is striving for. When you won that first one,
you know what?
Was it more of a relief? Was it more of like an accomplishment, or was it like, okay, what's next? How do I keep it?
You know what I can compare it to? You got to remember, I started training at 18, literally on my 18th birthday, and I won the Mr Olympia at 33. It took a lot longer. It took a lot longer than I ever expected because, listen, I was phenomenal at 21.
How many guys quit that you had started at that time, though? And then
it wasn't a quitting. It was the guys that got beat to the ground, but because they refused to push themselves past limitations. And I was second to the same guy for 4 times, and he was a beast. He was the best ever. The greatest of all time. I mean, I could sit there and say I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest all-around bodybuilder that's ever existed, meaning like in all senses of like what goes into it.
That competition you just bring up, I was on the way here, I was talking to Christina about it, about how in most sports, and I always compare bodybuilding to fighting, only especially a rivalry like the one you had. Similar to, you have fighters who a certain opponent will bring the best out of that fighter, and over their career they might see them a couple times, and then looking back in hindsight they become friends, and they're like, wow, I wouldn't have never been able to pinnacle or become culminated if this person wasn't there. Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, because Ronnie Coleman, the guy I mentioned, he made me the best.
Have you ever got a chance to tell him that?
Oh yeah, I mean, he knows, and I think I brought out the best in him too,
because
he knew I was right there. I mean, when you're second, when you're in a show, and there's 15 to 20 of the top guys in the world competing, and the show's built around only the 2 guys. It was a 2-man run. Like they only advertised. I mean, the posters were me and Ronnie. That was it, because they didn't waste their time advertising the other guys, and that's not being disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's just the truth.
Real rap. That's what
and I mean, it was him and I, and that was all people cared about with that show. But I mean, when I won that first one in 2006, you see these movies that they create this visual thing where like there's a lot of flashes that go through, and it shows like the guy going through like the death and the, you know, the training and like all the ups and downs that it takes to like, and all of a sudden, you know, then you're up here and it's like reality. That's what it was like, because when they announced me, like all I remember is just like light, because the place went crazy. The confetti comes down.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit, I just won the Mr. Olympia after as many attempts. And I literally was like this close to calling it quits, because I said, if I get second to this guy for a 5th time, number one, I'm calling it like totally rigged,
fraud,
right?
Yeah.
Because there was time, I mean, this happened years prior. I was ahead so much and I lost. It was like a totally political, like a nightmare in my eyes, even at the time.
A lot of people.
I mean, he deservingly could have won, but by the point spread, it didn't seem that way, you know? So I was just so excited. I was just overwhelmed with like all the effort that I did to get to where I got to. This is like your lifelong dream. Like literally, I picked up the magazine at 12, and I said, this is what I want to do. So now I'm 33, and I win the biggest title in the world, and forget it. After that, my career went, like, you talk about levels, and I was at a level. The money was not even, I never did it for the money. And I can truly say that even though I was a big earner, I never cared about the money when I was training for these things. All I wanted to do was win, and I wanted to be the greatest in the world at what I did. And I can still sit here and talk to you. Listen, we can sit here and do this interview. If you're, you know, I don't know much about your background, okay? You told me a little bit, you worked, you know, in service, whatever. But think about if you're the greatest on the planet of what you do. Like, to me, that's just mind-boggling. So for you to sit here, even for us to have this conversation, I have to like, holy shit, I was the best in the world.
Yeah, Jay.
Not once, twice, but 4 times. Like, that's just, it's just mind-boggling to me. That doesn't feel real even talking about it.
There's an awesome book. Maybe you've already read it. Are you familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers?
I never heard of it.
Okay, I'll send you a message. I'll send you the link. Read it, and it's all about statistics, but regarding greatness and regarding like average baseline sort of accomplishments. And the outliers are the ones who are the greatest at whatever they do, whether it's you're the greatest postman or the greatest bodybuilder. And the numbers, if you were able to equate, you know the accomplishments you've had, you know how it feels. But if you were able to read it and then see it, it's like you're...
I mean, we could talk about, like, who's the best basketball player of all time.
I'm from Ohio, I'd say LeBron James.
Well, I know, but
Jordan,
like, people say Jordan, but that, it's questionable,
it
right?
Is. Yep.
But when but who's won the most championships? Jordan, right?
Yeah.
Because it's on record. So here we are. I don't hold the most Mr. Olympia titles, but I mean, I've won undoubtedly 4 times in that season.
When most people, and the thing is too, is that if you were to look at the numbers of everybody who tried and everybody who failed, that's where it gets pretty impressive and it gets powerful. I think I always tell people, they always come up to me and sit here at the gym where I work at or online, Johnny, how'd you get to talk to this person? Johnny, how'd you get to talk to Jay Cutler? I'm like, because I've been messaging Jay for like over 2.5 years. It's persistence, and it's similar. You know, it's kind of what I love doing this, because I get to learn from you. One of my favorite quotes is Isaac Newton's, if I've seen farther than you, it's because I've been standing on the shoulders of giants. And the show is called Ungoogleable Success Secrets of Modern Day Giants. So before I let you go, for the listeners, for your fans listening to this, what do you think maybe, you know, some success, either advice you give out to people who are struggling, or something that's worked for you up until this moment in your life that's allowed you to create this empire that is Jay Cutler?
You know, I can say consistency is the most important thing. Like, you have to stay consistent. You know, you have to be passionate about what you want to do. That's number one. So if you're passionate about something, if it's not your passion, you're doing it, chasing, you never, like I talked about the money, if you're just saying, hey, I want to do a job that's going to pay me, or I want to pursue something that's not going to work. But I can truly tell you, the best successes I've had have been the losses, or the times that I felt like, okay, this is not what I expected. Those are learning experiences, and I think the failures set you up for the best success that you could possibly be. And I talk about, like, even the times when I hated to go to work, and I was mad at my family for making me do it. It taught me to be a better man. They taught me, okay, you have to work really hard for your money. Well, it made it a lot easier when I was able to now build a brand and be able to make money easier because of who I am and off my branding, right? But more importantly, I mean, those second place finishes at Olympia, which seemed the worst thing at the time, set it up for when I did win, it made it that much better for me. And it continues with life. It continues with everything I do. Like, sometimes failure is a good thing because it makes you a stronger person, but you have to be consistent. And I think you have to not give up. You have to thrive on what your real passion is, heading towards whatever an end goal is. And you know what? I don't even like, if you ask me, Jay, what's your plan now? And you know what? I'm just living day to day, week to week, month to month. I'm looking at every experience. I can't tell you what tomorrow's going to bring. I'm just excited to be here this weekend. I have so many great fans out here, and I have so many people that are influenced by my success. Selfishly, I wanted to be the best in the world. I didn't care. I never thought that, after the Olympia titles and this and that, it's going to motivate people. Like that wasn't even a question when I was that 18-year-old kid joining the gym. I just wanted to be great. I didn't even imagine that those guys I was idolizing in the books, I was going to be that guy someday, and kids were going to pick up a magazine or pick up social media and say, I want to be like Jay Cutler. Like, to me, that's just mind-boggling because I just was trying to live out my passion. Now the next generation is doing it. You know, I come from a town where nobody leaves. Nobody leaves. It's everyone. The same people that I went to high school with, they're still living out there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I chose a different life. I just chose, I wanted to be something great, and I pursued a career in something that I was passionate about, and that was lifting weights, which I never imagined I'd make such a great living at and change so many people's lives in so many cultures. I'm here on the other side of the planet.
We are in Australia.
Yeah.
Two guys from America in Australia just shooting the breeze. Jay Cutler, man, if people are living under a rock and they're not following you on social media, guys, do it now. Jay Cutler, follow his website. Is there anything that you're working on that you want to leave them with? Maybe where they can keep track of you, any business things you want to leave before I let you go?
You know what? I mean, I'm continuing to put out content. I'm all over my Instagram, my YouTube channel, Jay Cutler TV, putting out content now like 5 times a week on that. But you know what? Just give a look sometimes, man. And if you don't like what you see, I mean, I'd be very surprised, but yeah. I'm just out there, you know, I'm for the people, and that's the thing. I'm not chasing a dream anymore necessarily on stage. My dream is to, you know, to continue to live out the best life I can and give back to what created such a great opportunity for me. So I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity to speak to your audience, and hopefully you learned a thing or two about me that you didn't know.
Man, Jay Cutler, thank you so much, man. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Cool. And then before I let you go, do you mind if I get a photo?
No, sure.
All right, cool. That was awesome, man. Like I said, you probably get messages all the time, but I used to host another show with a co-host, and we would go after you. We were very persistent on trying to go after it. Just a lot of guests. You were like the number one. Yeah, and then I ended up writing a book, so it's not out yet, but I wrote a 30,000 word manuscript on Googleable. Like the story you were telling me about your family, like, you know, your fans probably just know you from, like, you know, the bodybuilder. You have your bodybuilder fans. But like, what really resonated with me, why I always wanted to chat with you, was that little clip that I saw years ago. Because I wasn't in, you know, to be honest with you, I've never really been like a super fan of like anything. Like of like, so I can't say I was a huge fan of bodybuilding. But when you were in just hustling and grinding, and I researched, I was like, this guy is still at his house acting like he's homeless, grinding it out, and that really, really inspired me.
I'm still that same way.
Yeah, I thought that alone.
My girlfriend says I'm super cheap.
Christina, oh, and also